Welcome back to part 2 in this series of restoring an antique child's rocking chair. Okay, now that your chair is repaired and put back together, I can look at replacing the missing back. To get started, I did a search on the internet to see if I could find a similar chair. With the help of some friends on the Fine Woodworking forum, we came up with this one, which looks very similar to what we have. The back most likely is laminated with a overlaid carving, which may explain why it's missing. This picture was taken at a pretty severe angle, so from that I loaded a portion of it into various image processing software packages and then stretched the bottom out to try to come up with what it would look like if it was taken straight on. From there, I cut out a template that would be full size. Now to draw the back, I figured it would be best if I could draw it on a flat piece of paper, so I used the formula for the arc length to come up with an approximation of how wide that would be if it was laid out flat. So I took my best shot at drawing this out on paper. Based on what I see, I may make a few adjustments, like moving the handle up some and moving the width of the overall back in or out, depending on how it looks. I've also taken the liberty to draw in a notional carving on one side. Not sure if I'll do that or not, but we'll see. I also use some online software that's used to calculate the angles for segmented bowls to figure out what angles I need to cut the slats at to get me the curvature of the back that I want. Okay, here I'm just milling the stock for the back. All the pieces get flattened on the joiner first and then run through the planer. Now I'm setting the table saw up to the angle we calculated with the software to achieve the proper curvature in the back. The glue-ups are a little tricky due to the curvature on the back, so I start with just a few pieces at a time to keep it to a minimum. Next I glue up the wings for the back. You can see in the bottom left, the first one is already done. This part was a little fussy due to the curvature, but I used some shims to help the clamp jaws grab onto the pieces of wood. Gluing up the wings to the core of the back was really tricky, so I did it off camera. The reason for the odd shape assembly of the back is I was trying to use up every last piece of oak I had in the shop. You'll see later when we add the pattern that it all works out. It was pretty clear that this was going to be an awkward piece to work on, so I built a little jig to hold it steady. Now it's a matter of scraping the glue off the back and then start the process of refining the shape with planes and scrapers and sanding. I bought a curved spoke shave to help with refining the shape on the inside of the back. It turned out that the curvature was too aggressive. Fortunately, the back side of the scraper had a shallower curvature, which worked out pretty well. I won't bore you with too much of the sanding, but I started with 80 grit and worked my way up through 320 grit. Here I'm using scissors and a razor blade to cut out half of the template for the back. I'm marking the center line on the back blank so I can register the paper template. Now you can see the odd shape of the back blank just barely covers all the areas necessary for the back. The paper is a little floppy, so I took my time and carefully marked the edges. Over on the bandsaw, I cut as close as I could to the outside lines. I made a lot of relief cuts to get the inside corners. To remove the inside areas, I start by drilling some holes. I used a scroll saw to finish the inside cuts. It took a while with this hard oak, but it got the job done. I was careful to try to follow the lines as closely as possible to reduce the amount of sanding I have to do later. To deal with the sharp corners on the backsplats, I cut out the larger areas first and then cut the sharp corners in the second pass. have these sanding pads for my scroll saw, which made it real nice to sand the inside edges. Here I'm working on the tenon at the bottom of the back, which will eventually go into the mortise in the back seat rail. Due to the curvature of the back, I used a variety of tools to cut the tenon, to include a small saw, chisels, and a shoulder plane. Using a drum sander, I sand the outside edges smooth. From the pictures we found online, it appears that the back of the chair has a slight radius across its thickness. So I'm using some spoke shaves and card scrapers to do that by hand. Here I'm just finishing the sanding by hand and breaking the sharp edges. Now it's time to mark for the holes in the back so we can put it all together. I'm trying to be real careful here not to drill all the way through the back. Well, that's about it for this segment of the Rocking Horse Repair. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like a reminder when the next segment is available, press the notification bell. Until then, thanks for watching.